Hello and welcome. It's not something you see every day on a Marshall 4x12 cab, is it? This is a Hacker record player, and this is in because the sound's a little bit dodgy, and I've just tested this out, and the turntable works fine. It's not in for anything of that. It's again another one from Lee's shop, and Lee's the man when it comes to turntables, so I'm just looking at the amplifier section of it. So I've had this record on just giving it a quick test, and I don't know where these albums have come from or why I actually owned them, but if we look at this one, Thrill to the Sensational Sound of Super Stereo. So it sounds a little rude, that does. How rude. So yes, you'd be looking at that, and I have to say it didn't give me much of a thrill listening to it, and so what we're going to do now is just have a bit of a listen. We don't want to listen to too long or we might get a copyright strike, but having said that, it's so distorted that we probably won't be able to make it out. There we go. That's enough of that. Gives you an idea. So that's all distorted and nasty, so we need to be having a look inside. So we need to get this. There's like a, you can't see it here, but there's a bit of a board there with some screws in. We need to get those off and have a look. So this is in very good condition for its age, and you can see there if we lift the lid down. And these are supposed to be quite sought after. I don't know whether that's true. I don't know what model it is. I have to say I'm not an expert on record players. But if we zoom into the back of it, we just get the camera. I might just have to lean it over. There's a label that can be seen there on the lid there. So if we just hone in on that, just go back a bit down, you can see there it says Cavalier record producer, but it looks a tidy bit of kit. I'm just rather hoping that's not the cartridge, because I don't want to go ferreting in here to find that it is the cartridge that's doing that. So I need to do a few more tests to make sure it's not the cartridge. Right, I've just done a bit of a test. Here I've just took one of the leads off the cartridge connections up there on the bottom of the turntable, and I've just run something through here on my phone, and it is very quiet. Very quiet indeed, although it's not distorting with this signal, but it is very quiet. We seem to have some output problem on this, and this is going to be a bit of a pain to take apart, because if we look, let me try and just hone in. I'll just bring the camera down. You can see the valve seat. There's the valve seats, there's one, and the other two are just under that tag strip there. So the valves are facing towards the back, which means we've got to remove the whole of this chassis from here to here. That's all the chassis. So we've got to remove that. So we'll spin it round and have a look. Right, if we look in there, we can just about get to the tubes, and we can see, I don't know if you can see the labels on there. We've got two EL86s and an EZ80. Might just better to read that. And then there's the EZ80 there hiding. So we need to, I'll just let those cool down. I've just turned it off. So we just need to let those cool down. Yeah, so I've got this chassis out eventually. Boy, was that a problem, because we had to get the turntable out, get the chassis out, had to take panels off the back with sockets connected on them, all sorts. So, but anyway, we've got this out eventually, and so here we've got, this looks like the volume pots and things there, volume, treble and bass. Now if we just turn this back, and I ended up having to take this out because I pulled out the tube, and the the retainer just flirted off through that little hole, so I ended up taking it out anyway. So we're going to check some voltages. Now I've got some ECL86s somewhere, I think. So what we're going to do is I'm going to test. So let me just explain. So these output tubes are ECL86s. So they're an output pentode and a triode preamp in one bottle, and we've got two. This amp's in push-pull. So this would have been quite an expensive record player in its day. It's got a bit of a scented smell to it inside, a bit like a gothic girl's handbag. So let's just look here, down in there as well. You can see it's very dusty and stuff, so we need to clean some of that out. In fact, the old chassis is really dusty. Just go through. So you can see the output transformer here. Now the other thing as well is with this amp, and it's been off for considerable time now, and this transformer is still really warm. So I'm beginning to wonder whether there's something short on this record player. And given the age of that capacitor there, he would be an obvious choice, wouldn't he, to check. First of all, that's one of those Hunt's capacitors, and we saw we see those on the Bush record players. This one's 50 plus 50. We could do with getting a model number and getting a schematic for this, because I tend to find on a lot of these older record player schematics that they have the voltages on there, and it's really helpful to have the voltages. Usually you know, you put the meter on the plate voltage and it's really low, then you can guess something's wrong. But it would be handy to have a schematic for this. But anyway, we've got it out, so I'm going to put the meter on it and we're going to have a look at the plate voltage. By the way, if you can hear that slight noise in the background, that's my dinner cooking in the oven, in the fan oven. Right, so I've just connected the meter up, and I've got it on the centre tap of the output transformer, and we're just going to have a look at the voltage, and we have got, and that's still climbing, 300 and, oh, it's going down now. And you can see that dropping, and you just think you can just see that on there. 200 and, so that's strange. That EZ80 came to life a bit quicker than the output tubes did. There was 300 and odd volts on there. Now there's only about 207, and it's dropping. I can't remember, you know, on the ECL86, the pin out on those. And funnily enough, it's not that long since we used those tubes, if you remember, because when we did that little desktop record player amp, it was like the extension amplifier for the Bush record player, that had ECL86s in it, and I seem to think we had considerably more plate voltage than that. Something seems to be drawing that down to me. That don't seem much, does it? 200. I'd expect to see on this, I would expect to see somewhere around 260-70 volts. I would have thought. Cap's rated at 350, and that is actually the same capacitor, I think, that was in that Bush with the surge of 450. In actual fact, that's actually milliamps, not volts. Yeah, ripple rating 450 milliamps. It says don't often see ripple rating on capacitors now. Pin 6 is the plate. In actual fact, I'm not using my noddle here because I'm just looking at this output transformer. It's obviously that yellow wire there. Instead of going to the valve, we'll just go to here. Why not do that? It's easy. Duh, why didn't you think of that before, man? Get that on there, that's good. So as you can see, we've got 188 on that side, so that is even lower, and on this side 188, just the same. This amp has got separate cathode resistors for each tube. There's one, I can see there, and we've got 15.42 volts across that, and that is 220 ohms. Where's my calculator? 15.44 divided by 220 ohms. That's giving me 70 milliamps of current. 70 milliamps according to that. Is that right? 70 milliamps. They must. Are they red plating? No. So what is the plate to cathode voltage? Times that by 171. That gives us 11.7 watts. Even allowing 5% for the screen, they're well over. That should be 9 watts, because that's the maximum dissipation of an ECL86 is 9 watts. So we've got 11.7. What have we got on the other side? So there's the other cathode resistor there, that 220 ohms. No cathode, we have got cathode bypass caps on there. So that now, let's just see what we've got on that one. And that's got 12, drop of 12. Now again, I've not measured those resistors, they could be out of tolerance, so I'm only guessing this. We're doing this roughly because obviously we're looking for a fault, so that's a massive amount of current. So on this one we've got 12.24. How do we divide that by 220? And we've got 55 milliamps on this side. So there's a whopping 14 milliamp difference between those tubes. And now if we go on to the other side of the output transformer, because that's where it's connected to the plate to cathode, remember, for these. So if we times that by 173, we get 9.62, and again allowing 5% for the screen. So that side's spot on, but the other side isn't. So could it be that tube? Well, there's a problem if that's not the problem. So it's that big fat resistor there, that 1.5k, that is the screen drop-in resistor for the screens. I've just done some maths on that, and you can see it's sweating. I've just done some maths on that, and that is drawing 6.3 amps across that resistor. Well, that can't be right on the screens, can it? So that would be, if that had just got a 1 watt or a 2 watt resistor in there, it would have probably smoked. We've changed this capacitor now here, and I'm a bit peeved that the writing's on the underside, but unfortunately that would mean turning the live feeds down towards the chassis, and although I've insulated them, I don't really want to do that. So we need, really, the ground terminal needs to be closest to the chassis, but we've got that in, and that's not really cured our fault. Of course it could be that coupling capacitor on there leaking DC. Let's see if that is leaking DC. It'd have to be leaking a lot though. Well, on that side of there I've got 69 volts and falling. We got on the other side of it 120, sorry, 12, and on there 13, and on there 34. So now I just need to check if they are the coupling caps. So yes, they are the coupling caps. They're connected to pin 9. Pin 9 is, pin 9 is the plate of the triode. We've got 64 volts coming out that plate, and if we go on to the other side, we've got 16. So that's leaking like a colander. If we go on to this one, go on to this side, I think we've got 33 volts. If we go on to this side, like so, we've got 12 leaking onto there. So have a bit of a think about this, and I've decided that, given the fact that they're leaky and very leaky, both of these, I'm just going to take this in the workshop and change all these capacitors, just recap this amp, because we've got so many problems. I think the simplest thing is, in wasting time trying to find a fault, is just shotgun the whole lot of the caps. They're all old, they're all tired. If they're leaking, you can guarantee these aren't going to be great either. We've got another electrolytic there, so we'll get that changed, and then we'll fire it up and see where we are with it. So we've been doing quite a bit of work on this amp, and you can see we've changed some of these, changed all these coupling capacitors and whatnot. There, cathode, couple of cathode resistors on the preamp stage. Now they were 2.2. I've put 1.5s in, so I'm going to try and get a bit more gain out of this record player. It wasn't very loud, mind you. Then again, state of these caps, there really is no wonder. And that, if you just heard that noise, that was Pink. She's just come collapsing down on a pile of rubbish. She's brevetting again. Oh yeah, a load of cardboard, and Pink's just emerged out of it at high speed. So back to this. So that 10k I'm testing there is out of tolerance. You can see there, 12.35, so he's going to be changed. Let's have a look at some of these capacitors that we've taken out. And really should have, instead of trying to fault find this amp, I should have just used my brains and shotgunned it all, because if you look at these caps, you couldn't really see them because they were down under some of the components that are hard to see, but it's just honed in. So if you look at that, you can see they're all like that. They're all coming out, the gumption is coming out of the end of them. There is some more. They're all like that though, they're all the same, they all look like that, so they're all tatered. So this needed a complete recap anyway. I changed the coupling caps, those were leaking like a colander. I didn't have any 15 nanofarads, so we put 22s in. That should be fine. One thing we do want to test though is this big juicy fat resistor here that was frying away like a sausage, sweating away on a barbecue, and he is 1.9k. so remember we'd got 6.3 amps draw across that resistor, and it's 1.9, should be 1.5, so that definitely needs changing as well. So there we are. So I'll carry on and get the rest of these components changed. Not many more. There's a couple of there's just the cathode resistors. I've for the pentose section of the valves, I've left those out because I'm going to jumper those in, and there's a couple of reasons why. I may just bias this a bit less than 9 watts, and we don't know when we've finished this and got it all running properly, we don't know what the bias is going to be. But also I've decided on this amp to get rid of the EZ80 and just put some solid state rectifiers across the tube base there. I can't see point in having a tube rectifier in a record player. In a guitar amp, yeah, but in a record player, no. It'll give us some more HT voltage, which will help bring down the current draw on this amp, which is quite high. These transformers are getting red hot, so we're going to remove that as well, which is why I've not put the bias resistors in. We're going to jumper those in, because of course we'll have more HT voltage, which means we'll need bigger resistors than we had previously, which was 220 ohms. We may need something like 300 getting up to. So check out here, if you look here, see that's where the plate resistor is joining to the coupling capacitor. Look how close that is to the chassis. There's no insulation on it. That could be a bit nasty. Now I've just tested those resistors and they test a bit iffy as well, so I'm gonna cut that one out anyway, because that's just not safe like that. Can't leave that, and we'll take them out and measure them. Right, we've just fired this thing up, and the voltage is just settling down, and boy, what a difference after changing all those capacitors. So we don't know, any of those could have been short or drawing it down. There was just so many of them, and they were all tatered. So 288 volts, that's from the center tap to ground. So if we go, and you can see now we've got quite a healthy signal on this as well. So just checking a few things. So I'm going to check what's on there. 257 is on there. Now if you remember this resistor that we got here, this drop-in resistor on the screen of the tubes, that had 43 volts across it, and now is only 17.9. Cathode to plate, we've got 273 volts. What did we have before? We had about 180. So I said that this would be somewhere around the 260-70 mark. Now I've got two 300 ohm cathode resistors in, one for each tube, and I did a bit of maths earlier, and this is now dissipating at about 7.2 watts, roughly around about 7 watts if we deduct for the screens. And this amp now is running like a song. And if I, so I'm looking for where that's gone. So if we look at the input, which is here, you see now that is really loud. Got a lot of volume there. So we are pretty much good to go with that. So the only thing now that I'm going to do on here is a few things. I'm going to change that resistor, the big chunky 1.5k, because he actually measures 1.9, so he needs to be changed. I'm just going to put a 3 watt 1.5k in there. I'm going to remove that EZ80 and put a couple of diodes in there, which I have here, which are BY33s, BY33, I think they are, and they are going to be, they're going to take place of that EZ80. I don't see any point in having a rectifier tube on a record player. On a guitar amp different maybe, but on a record player we'll just go for the solid state diodes. That's going to up that plate voltage even more, and whilst I've got these 300 ohm resistors in at 7 watts, I think when we put those in it'll get closer to 8, or it may even get to 8. Everything else in this amp on this section has been changed, except for that 330 picofarad capacitor there. They don't usually go leaky, but I have got some 330 picofarad, but they're only rated at 100 volts, and there's about 120 volts going across that. We changed these because these plate resistors were way over on the tolerance, so we've changed those as well. And also, again, what I said I'd done earlier is the 2.2k cathode resistors are now 1.5k, just to try and get a little bit more out of this record player. The only other things that are different is the coupling caps are 22 nanofarad, they were 10 nanofarad. We've got rid of all the leakage onto the grids, onto those tubes, and that was one of the problems. Positive volts on the grids was again causing the tubes to be over biased, and got all sorts of problems. So oh, and the other thing that I've actually changed is this, because we've got two 50s here, 50 plus 50 plate and screen. This was 8 microfarad, and I've made that 33 microfarad now. So again, just to get a bit more, just to make this thing sound better, and a little bit with a bit more three-pulsiousness. So 272 plate cathode, that has now settled at. this amp is running like a song. One of the reasons why I wanted to just check the voltage across this to make sure we were well below 350, because when I change this rectifier tube to solid state, that's obviously going to go up. This one's no problem because these are rated at 500 volts. Right, so there we go. So I'm going to get on and do that now, and then we'll see what the results are of that when I return. Right, so we've got those solid state rectifiers in, and I'm just bringing this up now on the variac just to be safe. And you can see it's drawing down. Got 188, it's going down slow there, and we've got 129 on the variac. So I'm just going to bring the variac up now to about 150 volts. And that's giving us about 212, still going down. So there we go. That's coming up nicely, 200 volts. So let's just whip that up again. 185 on the variac. Let's go to 235. 235, there we go. And we've now, plate to cathode, we've now got 300 volts. So we've gained probably another 20 volts, near enough there. 296, now it's settling. So we've gained quite a bit more plate voltage there. Plate to cathode, we're measuring that. So plate to cathode, we've got 295. That's settling now about 294. So that's given us more plate voltage. It's also, we're not drawing as much current now. We've got one less tube on the chain. We're drawing 230 milliamps now on the mains voltage. That includes the variac. So probably drawing about just under 200 milliamps, maybe less than that. Yeah, and that is really loud now. This record player's got some real punch. So the only other thing now we need to change is that whopping 1.5k resistor. So now that's settled, we'll check the bias roughly, start off with, because these resistors are 300 ohms. If I have to be honest, I've not measured them, so it could be less or a bit more, but they're not be much more, so we're only looking roughly. So we've got a volts drop there, you can see, of 9.1 volts. So where's my very large calculator that I still managed to lose? 9.1 divided by 300 ohms. That's given us 30.3 milliamps. Take away 5%, and we times that by, what was that voltage? We had 293 it is now. 8.44 watts, how about that? So my estimation of 300 ohms for the resistors was virtually bang on, because remember, these tubes, 8.44, that's why that makes the screen flicker. 8.44 watts. These tubes dissipate at 9 watts. So that's come out bang on. Well, it has on that side anyway. So let's check the other side, because remember, this amp has got 2 cathode resistors. So let's see what's going on the other side. (9.2221) it should be about the same. I forgot what that voltage. My memory's getting worse. I look at something and I forget. Let's just stick that on there. Stick that on there. 294. 8.58 on that side. So the current draw of the tube, because obviously we've got a cathode resistor on each tube, but 8.58 and 8.48, I'll say that's pretty good match. and for a record player we probably need a good match, so that's good. Right, this is all finished now. Just needs a bit of a sweep out just to make sure there's no bits left in it. So we've swapped this resistor here, this 1.5k, it was 1.9 if you remember, that big one, and that has affected the bias slightly by swapping that, but only slightly. But check this out, I've got on the left side, on the tube there, or the left side of the transformer, but the left tube on the left, I've got 9.15 watts, and on the other side I've got 9.19 watts. So they are biased at 100%, and that's fine for cathode bias. They will run comfortably like that. Some people bias them even higher than that, obviously I wouldn't, but the tubes are perfectly matched, which is incredible really, when you consider how much hammer they've had with the leaking coupling caps and some other problems. I've not put them in the tester, but this thing is running fine, so I can't see there being a problem with them. And it's got loads of gain now, loads of volume, it's great. Oh, and just a note, it's off the variac now, and I'm measuring the current on the mains, and it's drawing a mere 180 milliamps. So yeah, that removing that rectifier tube and making that solid state rectification has dropped that down no end, and yeah, and this thing's running pretty cool. Right, we've got this Hacker record player back together. Now I'm not going to play any vinyl on it because we'll be getting a copyright strike if we do. We won't be getting any thrills with this, I'm afraid. But what I have done is I have downloaded one of the YouTube library tracks, and I've got that on my phone, and what I've done is I've used a cable and I've just jumped it onto the input. So if we fire this up, see that's got a lovely bass response to it, and one of the reasons for that is this has got a huge elliptical speaker in it, probably about 10 inches, and it's got tremendous bass response. And of course we changed those 50 nanofarad caps to 22 nanofarad. Whilst that's only a slight difference, it will have made a difference to the bass response. Now this is incredibly loud with the record deck, not so with the digital signal off the phone. Could also hear that humming, and what that is, and a lot of these record players do that, and you get some very small guitar amps that do it, and because the switch is on the volume, that you've got the AC from the switch, and it always causes that hum. So there's not really a lot we could do about that except by dismantling the main switch. So if we just pull this back a bit, so I'm just going to give you a very minute blast of one of these tracks off this album. That's better. How loud that is. thing is ballistically loud. I can't believe it was as loud as that when it was new. So again, by removing that EZ80, and we've got a bit more HT now, a bit more punch, and also we put those 1.5k cathode resistors in instead of 2.2, which will give us a bit more gain on there. So I used the phone so you could have a listen to the quality of the actual amplifier, and just use that record there to demonstrate the volume, because we didn't want to get a copyright strike. So having sifted through these 70s albums again, and I really don't know what was going on in the 70s, but I found this one, silver saxophones. Yes, don't leave anything in the comments about mooting a saxophone. So the things that they got away with in the 70s. So there we go. Humour aside, that's completed this record player. It's been a bit different because obviously it's not been a guitar amp, but it's still been a tube amp, and I've really enjoyed doing this, you know. I don't know why, but I kind of, when I brought it back, I thought, that could be, you know, not fun, but I've actually really enjoyed doing this, and it's turned out great. The only thing I've got left to do now is there's some screws down the side that hold down the wooden base for the turntable, and some of the chrome washers are missing off there, so I've just got to go and locate some of those and fasten that down, and then it is finished. So that's another one. So thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this. It's been a bit different. Let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this, because obviously it wasn't a guitar amp. And you all take care, and I'll see you all in a future video. Bye bye for now.